Welcome to Railway Legends, Myths, and Stories. I'm Kevin Standley. Last time we talked about the engines of mining. In this episode we look back to when railways got their big start and to the self-propelled vehicle that became the king of the rails for so long, the steam locomotive. This brings us to our hero of early railways, Richard Trevithick. While far from the first to work on steam engines, Trevithick's innovations were key to the true practical steam engine. Born in 1771 in Cornwall, Trevithick was the son of a mine captain. The center of young Trevithick's world were the mine and the mine engines. At first, it would be hard to believe that young Trevithick could amount to much. One of his schoolmasters described him as a disobedient, slow, obstinate, spoiled boy, frequently absent and very inattentive. On the other hand, he had an exceptional skill at arithmetic, although he often reached the correct answers by unconventional means. I have known people like this. Today, someone like this might be said to have some sort of attention deficit disorder, or sometimes they start major tech companies. Spending much of his early years watching the great mine pumping engines, it is no surprise that young Trevithick had a strong foundation in practical engineering. Trevithick was one of those people of ideas and tried many different inventions. One of Trevithick's designs was what came to be called the Cornish boiler. This was a horizontal boiler with a fire tube running through it, giving an increase in area of heat transfer and greatly improving efficiency. Note these new type of Cornish boilers were installed on many older pumping engines designed by James Watt, whose work we discussed in the previous episode. What Trevithick wanted was a steam engine of much greater power, but also a design that did not use Watt's separate condenser. He had no desire to pay patent royalties to Watt. What Trevithick did was to design a high-pressure steam engine of a very compact size. Trevithick was not the first to think of using so-called strong steam. This honor goes to William Murdoch. Murdoch was a neighbor of Trevithick in the late 18th century and demonstrated to Trevithick his model of a steam carriage. Combining his own Cornish boiler and the ideas of Murdoch, Trevithick had a steam engine that might move itself. Okay, you should be asking yourself now, hey, what is strong steam? Is it steam that smells bad? No, not that. Trevithick used a steam pressure of 210 kilopascals. For comparison, everyday sea level air pressure is about 100 kilopascals, or 1 atmosphere. Simply put, Trevithick used a bit more than 2 atmospheres. Was this a lot? Well, for the time, yes, this was a lot. As an aside, jumping to the late steam engine period, the high-speed steam champion locomotive Mallard used a steam pressure of more than 1,700 kilopascals. Let's look at the Newcomen atmospheric engine and the improvements made by James Watt. A Newcomen engine operates at a pressure of, well, about everyday air pressure. The steam in Newcomen or Watt engines was only used to move the piston in the up direction. The steam is fed in so it can be condensed to create a drop in pressure. Again, it is regular 1 atmosphere air pressure that is doing the work. This is just regular everyday sea level air pressure. This is why it is called an atmospheric engine. Furthermore, the pressure on the piston was not the full 1 atmosphere, as the condensed steam was not a true vacuum by a long shot. Trevithick was using the far greater pressure of what was then called strong steam to do the work. By applying the high steam pressure to both piston faces, you could get both a much smaller engine and produce one that could produce far greater power. Now, even at this era, sometimes there would be a failure of a cylinder on a Newcomen or an improved Watt atmospheric engine. While the pressure was not all that high, the quality of the materials of the day was none too good. Metallurgy was not all that it is today. Because of this, at first engineers like Watt were much opposed to Trevithick's use of strong steam. Trevithick first worked on a number of models, first a stationary type, and then one of a sort of road carriage which was called the Puffing Devil. On the 24th of December, 1801, Trevithick demonstrated the Puffing Devil in Camborne. This modern reconstruction of the contraption has operated on the streets of Camborne to commemorate Trevithick Day, celebrated on the last Saturday in April. While Trevithick's steam carriage worked, a few days later it broke down during further testing. The story goes that the crew retired to a nearby inn for a hearty meal. Unfortunately, they forgot about keeping water in the boiler of their engine. Boiling the water off is a bad idea. The boiler failed, and the machine burned. Trevithick was not especially disheartened by this. He just chalked it up to operator error, and he continued tinkering. One thing that made these engines so unique and, well, more like revolutionary was the use of a four-way valve. The valve Trevithick used was one that had been invented by his friend William Murdoch. Trevithick combined this with so much improved boiler design and a few other changes. As often in stories like this, no one person does it all, but builds on many ideas. In 1802, Trevithick took out a patent for his high-pressure steam engine. To prove his ideas, he built a stationary engine at the Coalbrookdale Company's works in Shropshire in 1802, forcing water to a measured height to measure the work done. The engine ran at 40 piston strokes a minute with an unprecedented boiler pressure of 1,000 kilopascals. This could be stated as 10 times normal air pressure, or 10 bar, and this was quite a lot for its day. Now let's look at the 21st of February, 1804. The story goes that one Samuel Homfray was so impressed with the designs of Trevithick, he had bet another ironmaster, Richard Crawshay, the sum of 500 guineas, and I reckon that's at least $50,000 in today's money, that Trevithick's steam locomotive could haul 10 tons of iron. The site of the bet was along the Merthyr Tydfil tram road from Pendarren to Abercannon. So on the 21st of February, Trevithick's steam locomotive did haul a train on the tram road from Pendarren to Abercannon, a distance of some 16 kilometers. The trip took 4 hours, and while this was only a bit more than walking speed, say about 4 kilometers an hour, the locomotive not only pulled the load of 10 tons of iron, but also more than 70 impromptu passengers who had climbed aboard. As there is no evidence that any of these people paid for the ride, these might be considered the first railway hobos in history. As far as we can tell, there are no confirmed pictures, drawings, or sketches of the Pendarren locomotive. There are numerous images of the locomotive out there, but they do not seem to match contemporary descriptions of it. I would like to add one or two more things about Trevithick's early locomotive. It incorporated a number of innovations. First, it included a safety valve to limit steam pressure and to prevent the boiler from exploding. Another feature was a fusible plug of lead, which was set so that if the water level became too low, as had happened with the Puffing Devil, it would melt and then water would pour out of the boiler and put out the fire. This was the dawn of the steam locomotive. Now, it would be remiss not to mention Trevithick's other memorable locomotive called Catch Me Who Can. In 1808, this small locomotive ran on a circular track near present-day Euston Road in London. For the price of 1 shilling, people were admitted to the high fenced-off area to see if they had the courage to ride behind the little locomotive in a carriage adapted to run on a circular track. This is often credited as being the first railway to carry fare-paying passengers on a steam railway, something like an amusement park ride. While most rail storytellers often start with George and Robert Stephenson, both truly great engineers, the really important trait of the Stephensons was their good business sense. Lack of good business sense was one of Richard Trevithick's sad attributes. Once, while in South America, an almost completely broke Trevithick met Robert Stephenson. Although the two had little in common, Stephenson arranged for the funds to get Richard Trevithick back to England. Trevithick never did make his fortune. I really wanted to give a bit of well-deserved credit to Richard Trevithick for getting the steam engine onto the tracks. And as always, I'll see you on the train.